Hi, this is the first video of a three-part video series on how to foster a fruitful moms group at your church. And in this first video, we're going to talk about your role as an ambassador. When beginning any ministry, it is imperative for you to recognize that you now represent something much bigger than just yourself. This is probably the most important factor to consider before even beginning a ministry. Why is it so important? Number one, you represent Christ. In 2 Corinthians 5:20, Paul is writing about how they, the disciples, are ambassadors of Christ, that God was using them to deliver the message that the church in Corinth needed to hear. And instead of God using his audible voice, he used the voices of the disciples. This is what it means to be an ambassador, acting on behalf of someone else. If you have been called by God into ministry, then you are literally God's mouthpiece to deliver the message that he wants to share through your ministry. Because of this, it is vitally important that all of your topics, messages, methods, guest speakers, and every single agenda item line up with biblical principles. If your ideas stray away from the Word of God, then you are no longer acting as his ambassador. You are subjecting yourself and your ministry to possible embarrassment and needing of correction. All of your goals in ministry should be to accomplish God's work and to act on his behalf. Number two, you now represent your church as well. If you're going to begin a ministry under the umbrella of a church, then all of the actions you take and messages you share in ministry are a reflection of what your church also believes. You might have like a great book or a concept for ministry that you want to share with others, and the church seems like a great platform to do so because you can easily recruit from your church body. But what if your church leadership doesn't agree with you? What if the message of your idea does not align with what the church believes that it should focus on? Have you ever heard the phrase, "It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission"? Well, while that may be true in most cases in life, it simply cannot apply here. Remember, from the first point, you represent Christ and you are called to a higher standard as an ambassador of your church. Do not make decisions about starting a ministry without receiving permission for each step. Your church leadership will have foresight of issues that you haven't thought of yet. With the full blessing of your church leadership, beginning a ministry will be smoother, and they will probably even be excited to help it be successful by offering resources. And if you're not operating under a church, then it is important that you have accountability from some other resource. It is very easy to be deceived because we oftentimes use our feelings to make decisions. And having another person keep you accountable can prevent you from heading down a potentially deceptive path. Lastly, you do not represent yourself. And you're probably thinking, that sounds a lot like the first point she made about us representing Christ. I understand. But hear me out. Not only do you need to put all your emphasis on delivering God's message, but you also need to make sure to quiet down your own personal narrative. We all have preferences, biases, and prejudices that we aren't even aware of sometimes. For example, your family may love to co-sleep, breastfeed your babies, use essential oils, and homeschool your kids. And these are decisions that you've made together, and maybe they've been extremely successful for you, and that's wonderful. However, it is extremely easy to view these decisions as right decisions, simply because of how much they feel right to you. If you oversee a ministry that ever begins to promote these ideas as right choices, you could possibly be alienating the woman sitting next to you who sleep trains her baby, bottle feeds, gives Tylenol, and then sends her kids off to school. She might feel too embarrassed or condemned to speak up about her choices because they're so different from what you're promoting. These choices are not specifically addressed in the Bible. They're not salvation issues. So that makes them preferences, not mandates. As a leader of women, you want to make sure that your personal agenda does not get mixed in with what is biblically mandated. Promote God's agenda. Teach what's mandated in the Bible and compare all your preferences against the Word of God. Thank you for listening on how to be Christ's ambassador when starting up a new ministry. The next video will cover the very important mentor relationship between women laid out in Titus chapter 2.